If right before your wedding, you found out your fiancé had betrayed you and even had a child with his mistress, what would you do? Confront him right then and there, or stay silent to set up a perfect trap? Leave your answer in the comments below, because I truly want to know. If you were in my situation, what would you do? I am Emily, with just a few days left before my wedding. Tonight was James's bachelor party with his friends. Snow was falling heavily on Fifth Avenue, covering New York's skyscrapers in a cold white. I stood by the window, holding a heavy wool coat that still carried his cologne. I called Joe, James's driver. "Joe, it's freezing out there. Can you bring this coat to James at the bar for me?" On the other end, Joe's voice hesitated. "Miss Miller, it's still early. Why don't you bring it yourself? Trust me, he'll be thrilled to see you show up." I froze for a moment. Joe had worked for James for years, loyal, discreet, almost like family. His suggestion sounded harmless, even kind. "If James sees you bring the coat yourself, he'll be touched," he added. I hesitated, then agreed. I rode with Joe, watching the city lights blur through the frosted glass. James rarely went out drinking, and I knew most of his friends, some from his startup days, others from NYU. I only planned to drop off the coat, say hello, and leave. But as I neared the private room, my hand just touched the doorknob when the voices inside froze me in place. My fingers trembled mid-air. "Come on, James!" Daniel's voice rang clear through the glass, casual but like a knife. 2 weeks until the wedding, and Jessica's pregnant. How are you going to juggle both? My heart pounded wildly. I thought I misheard. But through the fogged glass, I saw James raise his glass of liquor, that smug smile on the familiar face. "Feels pretty great, actually." Laughter erupted, slamming into my ears like a slap. "That's James! Built an empire, keeps Emily happy, and still has some fun on the side. Every man dreams of that." Daniel sat in the corner, smirking. "But watch out! If Emily finds out, you're finished." James waved it off, arrogant. "She won't find out. I've got it handled." The laughter rose again, every word stabbing into me. "With your money and status, being tied down to one woman is such a waste. Jessica came to you, James. No one forced you. If someone serves it up, why refuse?" Then another voice. "Where's Jessica, anyway?" "Someone text her to get here." Jessica. That name hit me in the gut like a punch. The junior from New York University I once mentored, brought into our company. My stomach clenched painfully. And then, the sound of heels echoed down the hall. I quickly hid behind a column as Jessica Hayes's familiar figure appeared. She walked into the room and straight into James's arms. He held her, his hand resting on her stomach. The motion was so natural, so practiced, it suffocated me. His eyes lit up. "It's freezing out. Why didn't you stay home where it's warm?" Jessica pouted. "I wanted to surprise you. Happy?" James smiled and kissed her. Very happy. The whole room watched as if it were nothing unusual. James even reminded her, "Don't smoke. Jessica's pregnant." Cheers rang out. "James, this girl's really got you hooked. You treat her like a treasure." I could barely breathe. Those words, I'd heard them before. Every time I showed up at events with James, his friends said the same. "Emily's so lucky. James treats her like a queen." And then, James would pull me close, saying with that warm smile, "I'm the lucky one for having Emily." I had once felt proud, once happy to tell everyone we'd been together since college. Over 10 years, certain we'd grow old together. Now I realized it had all been a performance, admired to my face, mocked behind my back. Shame surged in my chest. I dug my nails into my palm to keep control. "James is wonderful," Jessica cooed, but her next words pierced me. Too bad I met you too late. If I had met you a few years earlier, maybe I'd be the bride in 2 weeks. Right, James? The room went silent. James chuckled, his voice cold and mocking. Ever heard this one? To marry a CEO, you've got to meet him when he's still a coder. Emily's been with me since I had nothing. What do you have to compare? He leaned in toward Jessica, his voice low. Just focus on the baby. Don't dream too much, and don't you dare say a word to Emily. Jessica's face turned pale. The air thickened. Someone hurried to cut the tension, forcing a laugh. Easy, James. Jessica gets it. Emily will never know. But Jessica stammered, trembling. I'm sorry, James. But Emily, even if she finds out, she'd never leave you. My eyes burned, my hand shaking on the doorknob. James frowned, his tone stern but laced with softness. Don't let it happen again. He paused, then said each word clearly. No one tells Emily. Just that one sentence shattered me completely. Memories crashed back. Years ago, during the rough startup days, I'd collapsed and ended up in the hospital. James had cooked me a meal, and I half joked, James, if you ever cheat, I'll take everything and disappear. His eyes were full of love then, his voice steady. I swear, Emily, I'll never betray you. If I do, I'll lose everything, money, honor, and you. And now, those words, once a vow, echoed again in that room as a cruel reminder of how much he had changed. I staggered down the stairs, my stomach twisting with nausea rising like a wave, as if everything I had just heard was crushing me to the ground. Outside the window, snow fell thick and heavy, each white flake swirling in the cold wind, pulling old memories back into my mind. James's voice from years ago still echoed somewhere in my head, every promise, every sweet word I had once believed in so blindly. Emily, no matter what happens, I'll face it with you. You're not the girl who gets abandoned. You're my Emily. When we succeed, I'll throw the wedding of the century so the whole world will witness our love. Emily, Emily. But in this moment, it all shattered. Those promises of the past were swept away by the snow, leaving only the image of James kissing Jessica in front of his friends. Betrayal drowned me. My legs lost all strength. I collapsed, falling hard against the frozen steps, sliding into the snow-covered porch. Joe rushed from the car, his eyes full of alarm. Miss Miller, are you all right? I looked up at him, and right then, I understood why he had insisted I bring the coat myself. He already knew. My voice broke, trembling into sound. How long have they been together, Joe? He avoided my gaze, his face tense. Miss Miller. I bit my lip hard, stood up, brushed the snow off my dress. Thank you, Joe. I want to walk alone. You go ahead. Behind me, the man I had loved for 10 years was holding someone else in his arms. I walked into the white snow, each step heavy, my mind spinning through everything that had been. I grew up in a small town in the Midwest, where my parents favored my younger brother, while I was always invisible in that house. After high school, they wanted me to stay, marry a local boy, and live my life on the farm. No one encouraged me to go to college, but I was determined. One night, my parents locked me in my room, bolting the door to stop me from leaving. I climbed out the window, carrying a backpack and some savings, my heart pounding in my chest. James, my boyfriend then, was waiting at the gate, and he helped me run away to New York. Later, I was accepted into Yale, but I gave it up. I chose James. I chose the startup dream he painted in New York. My professor looked at me with disappointment, his words sharp and cold. If you give up Yale for a man, don't regret it later. I believed I never would. In the beginning, we crammed into a basement apartment in Brooklyn, living poorly, not enough money for heat. In winter, we wrapped in blankets, holding each other for warmth. On rainy days, water flooded the floor. I even joked, "James, look, it's like we're on the beach in Hawaii." He held me, eyes steady. "Emily, we'll make it. I'll take you to Hawaii one day to watch the sunset at Waikiki." And I believed him. Believed so much, I handed him my youth and my future. I took on every role in the company, from accountant, secretary, to errand runner. We went to countless networking events in Manhattan, drank cheap coffee to save money, building the company from nothing. Then the internet boom came, and the company grew. We hired staff, expanded offices. I went back to see my old professor, hoping to prove I had made the right choice, but he refused to meet me. I returned to the company and found James with his new assistant, a pretty girl whose eyes never left him. Instinct told me something was wrong. I replaced her with Jessica Hayes, the junior I once mentored through the scholarship program. I had helped with her tuition, found her a job, given her a chance. And yet, the two people I trusted most betrayed me together. I hated James for trampling his promises. I hated Jessica for betraying my trust. I hated them for making me a fool. I wanted to storm into that room, scream, smash everything. But my hand on the doorknob, reason pulled me back. Confronting them now would only make them wary. I needed a plan to make them understand that love, sacrifice, and me, Emily Miller, would never be something to trample on. That night, James came home late, carrying a small gift box in his hand. He smiled, his voice sounding tired, but laced with a touch of forced guilt. "Sorry, Emily, Daniel and the guys just kept me there." I smiled too, a strained smile, trying to hide the disgust churning inside me. Was it really the guys keeping him, or was it Jessica? James held up the box, his eyes glimmering as if he had done something special. "Guess what I bought for you?" I glanced at it and answered flatly, "Cupcakes." He froze, a little surprised. "How did you guess that?" Back when we were poor, I was addicted to sweets. James used to buy cheap cupcakes to comfort me after long, exhausting days. When life got better, he still kept that habit, and I always pretended to be surprised, pretended to be happy. But now, I didn't want to act anymore. I took the box, and without thinking, flipped it over. A receipt was sticking out from underneath. I caught a quick glimpse. 2 cupcakes, but inside, there was only 1. I looked up and asked bluntly, "You bought 2, but only brought 1 home?" James didn't even pause. He answered instantly, "Oh, Daniel was with me." He wanted to buy one for his wife, so I just paid for both. I pressed, my tone sharper. "His wife was at the party too?" He shook his head calmly. "No, she wasn't there." I opened the box. The cupcake looked neat enough, but a large bite was missing from the edge, and on the frosting was a smudge of orange lipstick. I clenched the lid tight and looked straight at James. "Then why does this one look like someone already took a bite?" James froze. His hands, halfway through taking off his coat, stopped mid-air. He blinked, then spoke, his voice faltering. "The bakery must have given me the wrong one. I'll get you a new one tomorrow." I shook my head, a cold smile curling on my lips. "No need. I'm cutting back on sugar lately." I pointed at the lipstick mark and added a line like a knife. "That shade looks familiar. I just bought a tube last week." James exhaled with relief, clinging to the excuse. He gave a faint laugh. "Really? I've never seen you wear it." I lifted my face, locking eyes with him, my voice dropping lower. "I gave it to Jessica. To me, she was like a sister. I supported her, paid her tuition at New York University, brought her into the company. To me, she and you, we're both family. If she betrays me, it's no different than you betraying me." James stayed silent for a long while, then gripped my hand tightly, his voice hoarse. "Never, Emily. You're imagining things." I let out a soft laugh, so faint it sounded like a sigh. "Hearing you say that, I feel reassured." But inside, I was frozen. He had the chance to be honest. He chose to lie, so he shouldn't blame me. Late at night, James stirred, slipping quietly out of bed. I cracked my eyes open and saw him holding his phone, stepping onto the balcony. Angry whispers cut through the glass door, each word like a blade against my ears. I stayed still, shut my eyes, and pretended to sleep. The next morning, I sat in a luxurious office in the heart of Manhattan, across from the woman known as one of the best lawyers, Ms. Wilson. After listening to everything I had told her, she leaned slightly forward, her voice firm. "Emily, we need to gather proof of James's affair. That's how you'll protect your rights in the divorce and secure the best possible settlement for yourself." I nodded, my eyes drifting to the fogged-up window where the snowy street below hummed with traffic. "I don't want to drag this out. They're not worth any more of my time or emotions," I said, my voice steady, though my heart churned. I knew too well how pain was like a whirlpool, capable of pulling someone into a bottomless pit with no escape. I continued, almost as if reminding myself, "I have enough shares and assets to live comfortably forever. In 2 weeks, I'll be moving somewhere else. But before that, I want to liquidate all my holdings." Ms. Wilson raised her eyebrows, her eyes glinting with admiration mixed with surprise, then gave a confident smile. "All right, I'll have the settlement ready in 3 days, along with proof of infidelity. Leave it all to me." Her assured tone seemed to warm the room against the bitter winter cold. But just as I began gathering my things to leave, my phone buzzed. An Instagram notification lit up the screen. It was from Jessica. A photo of her in a flimsy white sundress, her face glowing, while James bent down to kiss her rounded pregnant belly. The caption beneath the photo made my breath catch. "Sister Emily, I know you saw us at the bar. I don't want to hide it anymore. This baby is James's. We've been together for over a year." I froze. The audacity went beyond anything I had imagined. Another message followed, each word stabbing straight into my chest. "Everyone knows about me, except you. He used business trips as an excuse to be with me. I'll give him a child. His mother treasures me like a jewel. What do you have over me? You just happened to meet James first. I'm no less than you." My hands shook uncontrollably. "Can't have children?" Those words ripped open a wound I had buried for 3 years. Memories crashed back, so vivid I could still hear the water lapping at the shore. That night, James had recklessly raced a business partner on a winding mountain road. I cried, begged him to stop. He didn't listen. He won the race, but the car plunged into a frozen lake. I had jumped into the icy water to drag him to shore. And it was me, the one carried onto the stretcher first, who lost the child that had barely begun to form. I remember James holding me in remorse, swearing, "I'll always be good to you. We don't need children. Having you is enough." Now those words had turned to ashes. Tears welled, but I swallowed them back. And at that moment, the door opened. James walked in, his face lit with a smile like someone returning from another world. "Emily, I'm home." He froze mid-step when he saw my tear-stained eyes. "Why are you crying?" He rushed over, pulling me tightly into his arms, his voice soft and soothing. "What happened?" I drew in a deep breath, steadying my breathing. "Nothing. Watched a movie. A couple together 10 years, but they had no children. And then the husband cheated and left her. James hugged me tighter, his hand stroking my hair. That will never happen to us. We'll go get checked again. We'll have children. I shook my head gently. I don't want to go to the hospital anymore. He immediately replied, Then stop. We don't need children. Having you is enough. I swallowed the lump in my throat, my voice trembling. James, you won't betray me, right? I'm afraid after the wedding, you won't love me anymore. I quickly wiped away the tear left on my cheek. I want to sign a prenuptial agreement. That way, I'll feel at ease. The sound of water murmured in the bathroom, filling the silence of the apartment. On the table, James's phone kept lighting up. Call after call, message after message flooding in. Miss you, James. Along with it was a photo blurred in dim light. I only glanced at it. My heart no longer ached the way it once did. Only a cold emptiness remained. I picked up my own phone, stepped out onto the balcony, inhaled the freezing air, and called Ms. Wilson. My voice was so calm it even surprised me. He agreed to sign the agreement. Send me the draft tomorrow. Handle the rest after I'm gone. The glass door slid open behind me. James appeared, his wet hair dripping down his shoulders, a towel draped loosely around his neck. His eyes flickered with surprise. Go where? Sign what? I turned back, a quiet smile on my lips. Ms. Wilson is drafting the prenuptial agreement, James laughed, as if he had just heard something strange. You already found a lawyer? I nodded slightly. Last year, at one of your networking events, I ran into a legal issue. Ms. Wilson helped me. He nodded, then without hesitation wrapped his arms around me. If the agreement makes you feel secure, I'll sign it. His hot breath brushed my ear, once familiar, but now only irritating. I shifted slightly, pointing at his phone that was still buzzing endlessly. Your phone's been ringing nonstop. Someone seems desperate to reach you. James stiffened. I saw his hand falter. He snatched the phone, scrolling quickly through the screen. When he turned back, his voice was low, edged with tension. Emily, just now. Did you look at my phone? I stared directly at him, my gaze steady. Number Y? A pause. Then he exhaled, forcing a laugh. Just company business. I'll have to travel in a few days. Won't be back until right before the wedding. Don't overwork yourself. Take care. I nodded, smiling gently. But inside, everything was already clear. The next day, the prenuptial agreement with James's signature was in my hands. He had signed it quickly, hardly reading. It looked far too generous for him, so he suspected nothing. I kept the cash, the real estate, the investments. He took the company shares, the thing he thought was everything. I stared at that familiar signature on the page, feeling as though I had just closed a chapter. That afternoon, I stumbled across Jessica's Instagram story. A photo, a deep blue ocean, the caption, Paradise awaits, Hawaii vibes. She had said it so only I could see. In the following days, her stories overflowed with images. James and Jessica watching sunsets in Waikiki, hands entwined, lips touching under a sky full of stars. It was the Hawaii trip James and I once promised each other during freezing nights in our basement apartment. Now it belonged to her. I looked at those photos and felt no pain. Only a bitter, ironic taste remained. The man who once carried me through flooded nights, who promised he would take me to Hawaii one day, had vanished completely. I began clearing out. I met with real estate agents, signed papers selling every house and plot of land in my name. I hired movers, packed my belongings, then gave away everything I had once spent so much effort to collect. In my office, I opened a thick photo album, filled with college snapshots, the grueling startup years, nights holding each other while hungry. I placed it into a metal tray and lit a flame. The fire roared, devouring every smile, every memory, every promise. As the ashes fell, I saw only one thing: freedom. The day before the wedding, James came home, looking excited like a child who had just received a gift. But as soon as he stepped into the apartment, he froze. The room was empty, every familiar item gone, as if it had never existed. He frowned, his voice tense. "Did we get robbed?" I stood in the cold emptiness, shrugged calmly. "We're getting married soon, so I cleared out the old stuff and bought new things with your card. You've been so busy with your business trips, you couldn't call me even once." He exhaled, a forced smile creeping back, covering the flicker of worry. "Sorry, Emily, work's been overwhelming. Buy whatever you want. My money is your money." I smiled faintly, the kind of smile that never reached my eyes. "There's still a lot to do tomorrow. Get some rest." James stepped closer, kissed my forehead, his eyes brimming with confidence. "I'll do as you say, my bride." I stayed silent, but inside the nausea rose again. I had once been eager to prepare for this wedding, once carefully chosen the stage lighting, meticulously written down every name on the guest list, cherished the wedding dress inside its glass box. But now all of it was nothing more than a curtain hiding the trap I had set. I had invited business partners, friends, and even the press, not to witness our love, but to ensure there would be a full audience when the show collapsed. In the bridal dressing room, I sat before the mirror, my face covered in a smooth layer of powder. My phone buzzed. An Instagram message from Jessica. A provocative photo with words dripping with smugness. I smiled, this time not with bitterness, but with freedom. I turned to Miss Wilson, the lawyer who had stood by me through these past days. "What comes next, I leave to you." She gave a small nod, her eyes steady. "Everything is ready." The wedding planner rushed in, her voice hurried. "Miss Miller, it's time to change into your dress." I stood, but I didn't take the path leading to the altar. I turned down a side hallway, quietly stepping into the elevator that led to the hotel's lowest floor. As the doors closed, I pulled out my SIM card and tossed it into the cold steel trash bin. A sharp clink echoed, the final period on the past 10 years. Outside, the cold wind of New York struck my face, carrying with it the promise of a new beginning. I opened the car door and drove straight toward JFK Airport. Behind me, James and Jessica still believed they had won, that I would be standing under the wedding lights, buried in makeup and white lace. But soon they would learn the true price of betrayal. A few months later, while sitting under the ancient arches of Florence, lost in architectural sketches, I received a call from Ms. Wilson. Her voice came through clearly over the line, blending with the sound of church bells in the distance. "After you left, we played James's infidelity evidence on the big screen. The media went wild. People thought they were attending a wedding, only to end up watching a show." I squinted under the summer sun, the corner of my lips curling into a smile. "That was unprofessional of you," I said, half joking, though a weight had lifted inside me. Ms. Wilson chuckled softly. "Hearing you laugh puts me at ease. Are you doing all right?" I cast my eyes toward the vast blue sea, sunlight dancing across the waves. "Better than ever. I never knew the world could be this beautiful." But Ms. Wilson hesitated, then lowered her voice. "There's one more thing." After the wedding, James rushed to the airport and was hit by a car, his legs broken. "That driver, was it your man?" I smiled, my eyes half closed. That would be illegal, Ms. Wilson. Old memories returned. In that basement apartment years ago, when we struggled through the brutal winter, James once held my hand, his voice trembling. If I ever betray you, I'll lose everything: money, health, and you. Perhaps this was the one promise he actually kept. Ms. Wilson continued, her voice sharp. The company is collapsing. Public opinion is crushing them. The IPO has failed. Don't you want to come back? I shook my head slightly, though she couldn't see it. That's no longer my company. I don't want to see those people again. The line went silent for a moment before she spoke again. There's something else. Your mother. She called me when she couldn't reach you. Linda. She's gravely ill. She wants to see you. The smile on my lips vanished. I flew back to New York, the city buried in white snow, as cold as the first time I arrived there. The hospital reeked of disinfectant. Linda lay in bed, her aged face showing no sign of real sickness. A nurse sat beside her quietly peeling an apple, the faint scent of fruit lingering in the air. When she saw me, her eyes lit up, her voice trembling with joy. Emily, you're back! But before I could say a word, her face darkened, her tone shifting to reproach. I heard you ran away on your wedding day. How could you humiliate James like that? Not a single word of concern, not a single question about my life. Only blame. I drew a long breath, my voice dropping low. Mother, James cheated and got someone else pregnant. She froze for a moment, then frowned, waving her hand in annoyance. Men stray sometimes, Emily. As long as he still loves you and provides, you need to learn to forgive. I stood motionless, my chest turning cold. James told you to call me back, didn't he? Linda faltered, clutching my hand, her tone tinged with urgency. I only want what's best for you. A woman needs a man to rely on. James knows your past. He loves you. You won't find anyone better than him. I pulled my hand away, each finger icy to the touch. I turned and walked out, my footsteps echoing down the stark white corridor. Behind me, her frail voice called out, desperate. Emily! Emily! But I didn't look back. Linda's hoarse call echoed behind me, making me freeze, and childhood memories rushed back like a cold wind striking my chest. I remembered growing up in a tiny Midwest town where every meal revolved around my younger brother. My parents saw him as their only hope, while I was just the daughter mentioned like a shadow. Every time I tried to achieve something, their eyes stayed indifferent, only to turn and praise my brother. I gradually understood that in that house, my worth was measured solely by how well I obeyed. After high school, they wanted me to stay, marry a local man, work in the cornfields like an invisible laborer. College? They never once brought it up, except with a mocking line, "A useless girl, what's the point of studying?" But I refused. I longed for another life, one where I could choose and be heard. I remember that fateful night vividly. They locked the door, trapping me in that suffocating room, thinking they could cage my dreams. I trembled as I climbed out the window, my hands bleeding from gripping the cold iron bars, the back of my shirt tearing against rusty hooks. In my worn backpack were only a few wrinkled clothes and a little saved money. My heart pounded wildly, every step through the wind in the dark town driven by one thought. If I stayed, my life would be buried here forever. And James was there, waiting for me. I broke down, sobbing, telling him everything. My parents' favoritism, the feeling of being cast aside, the fear that my whole life would amount to nothing more than being a prop in a family that never truly saw me. He pulled me into his arms, his warm hand on my shoulder, whispering, "Don't be afraid. I'll always be with you." In that moment, those words felt like a lifeline. Through my broken breaths, I blurted out, "James, I want to change my name." I don't want to be Tina anymore. I no longer wanted to carry the name my parents had turned into a shackle. James smiled, held my hand tight. "You're not Tina. You're Emily. My Emily." And I believed him. Believed so much that I placed all my trust, my salvation, and my future in his hands. I told him everything about my past, the pain I had never dared to share with anyone else. I thought he would protect me. But now, looking back, I realized James had turned the most painful memory of mine into a cheap joke in the mouths of Jessica and his friends. Heavy footsteps dragged me back to the present. I hurried down the hospital corridor, the cold white fluorescent lights reflecting off the tiled floor. But James had caught up at the stairwell. He leaned on crutches, each step unsteady. "Emily," he called out, his voice echoing before stumbling. The metallic crash against the floor screeched. Everyone in the hallway turned, their eyes filled with curiosity. He grimaced in pain, but still forced himself closer to me. I stopped, my voice cold as ice. "Say it quickly! I don't have time!" James's face was pale, sweat beading on his temple. "I'm sorry, Emily. I don't want to lose you." I closed my eyes, my body trembling with disgust. "Don't want to lose me, but you got Jessica pregnant and now ask for forgiveness? What kind of woman do you think I am?" "It's not like that." His voice rasped, struggling to swallow his shame. "Jessica, she reminded me of you." I let out a bitter laugh, the sound cutting like a blade. "I'm standing right here, James. In what way is she anything like me?" He was speechless, lips moving, but no words coming out. I stepped closer, my voice sharp, each word deliberate. "If you had the guts to admit your betrayal, I would have respected you more. This cowardice only makes me despise you." I turned away, my heels striking the floor with cold finality. But then I paused, looking back into his desperate eyes. "Stop using my mother. Fooling me once was enough." I walked away, leaving his ragged breathing behind. That night, I deleted Linda's number. For years, I had thought she loved me too, just a little less than my brother. But now I understood. She only loved the idea of a perfect son-in-law, not me. That love had never been mine. From now on, I will love myself, for the very first time, after everything. The heavy snow delayed all flights, and I was forced to book a hotel near the airport. As I walked into the lobby, I saw James sitting there, pitiful in a patient's gown, his eyes hollow as if all life had drained out of him. The receptionist quietly asked if I wanted to approach, but I shook my head. A patient needs a doctor, not me. I turned away, my heart no longer trembling as it once did, only a cold emptiness stretching inside my chest. That night, there was a knock at the door. When I opened it, Patricia, James's mother, stood there shivering in the icy wind. I couldn't let an older woman stand outside in the snow, so I invited her in and poured her a cup of hot tea. She looked frail, her gray hair unkempt, her voice trembling. "Emily, James hasn't eaten or slept since you left. He's fallen apart each day." I looked her straight in the eyes, my voice calm. "He chose that path himself." She clasped my hand, her eyes pleading. "James was wrong. I told him to end it with Jessica. Everything can go back to how it was, can't it?" I pulled my hand away, each finger freezing. She persisted. "James is the pillar of this family. If you don't forgive him, the company will collapse, and we will lose all our reputation and stability." I swallowed hard, my voice cutting out like a blade. "Forgive?" After 10 years of love, losing a child, and that brazen betrayal, how am I supposed to forgive? If I forgive, then my life has no meaning. I'll forever be that useless daughter my parents once despised. But I won't live like that anymore. I am Emily. Patricia broke down, sobbing, begging. If you can't forgive him, at least convince him to go to the hospital. The snowstorm is too much. He won't survive it. I sighed and nodded, not for James, but for her. After all, there were times she treated me better than my own parents. When James saw me, his eyes lit up as if he had found salvation. Emily, you came. He pointed to his cast leg, his voice shaking. Even when I'm this broken, you're still here. He began recalling the early startup years, the nights I made soup when he was drunk, the times I signed contracts in the snow to save the company, the promises of growing old together. I clenched my fist, cutting him off. Enough. You gave me the worst years, and the glory days to Jessica. What right do you have to bring up the past? I looked straight at him, my voice firm. I came here for your mother, not for you. You betrayed me, I fought back. Once I get you into the hospital, we're even. At the hospital, as a nurse pushed his wheelchair, James suddenly grabbed my sleeve, his eyes red, whispering, I'm sorry, Emily. I let out a bitter laugh, shook his hand off, and walked away without looking back. In the hallway, Jessica was waiting, one hand on her belly, her lips painted pale, but her eyes still glowing with smugness. Emily, this time I've won. I looked her dead in the eyes, my voice icy. Yes, you've won. A man with a broken leg and a company on the brink of collapse. Congratulations, Jessica faltered, her face paling, but tried to cling on. James will rise again. I walked past her, leaving only one last sentence like a final blade. I hope you're patient enough to wait. The day I left, the snow stopped, revealing wet streets shimmering under yellow streetlights. At the airport, I saw my old professor, the one who had turned away when I abandoned Yale, now sitting in a wheelchair, his wife at his side. His face lit up when he saw me, his eyes shining like they once had. I heard you're flying today, so we came to see you off. I had held back tears through all the betrayals and pain, but his words broke me, warm tears spilling hot against the cold air. His wife asked gently, Why are you crying? He answered for me, his voice soft as spring wind. Winter is past, and the spring breeze makes the eyes sting. We sat in a small Starbucks in the departure hall. He rested his hand on the table, his eyes kind but sad. When you turned down Yale, I was too harsh. I shook my head, smiling through tears. No, you were right. I was too naive. He shook his head slowly, speaking carefully. Life is a series of trials. The pain you endured was the price of growing up. You're still young. There's time to begin again. When the plane took off, slicing through the heavy gray sky, I looked out the window and saw New York's snow melting, giving way to thin rays of sunlight spilling onto the streets. I once thought winter would forever freeze my heart, but in truth, spring had come, quiet, patient, carrying the promise of blossoms. And I whispered, as a final end to everything, every winter passes, and spring always comes, bringing the chance to begin again. I chose freedom for myself, but if it were you, after everything, what ending would you want for a betrayer? To be forgotten in silence, to be forgiven so both can move on, or to be punished publicly so there's no way back? Tell me in the comments. Perhaps your answer will give someone listening to this story the strength they need.